2012, which has garnered, millions and millions of views. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that essay? Because it has really resonated, as you see, with so many people, not just everyday folks, but A-list celebrities like Nicole Kidman, Jennifer Hudson, Oprah, you name it. When you were writing that and spoke about it, did you have any idea it would have the impact it has today?
No.
Yeah.
None at all, really, none. And with the second TED Talk, with the first TED Talk...
2009 was the first TED Talk. Was
yes.
that The Danger of a Single Story?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
And I'd been asked to come and speak at TED. I actually didn't even know what TED was. And then I was told, my agent said to me, they don't usually ask writers, and they're asking you. And then they said, oh, Bill Clinton will be in the audience. And I just went into a panic. And then I went and I looked at the other TED Talks, and I realized that people were just actually doing just the most incredible things. People were sort of starting schools and building massive wells and coming to talk about it and sort of doing green energy wind farms. And I remember thinking, why the hell did they ask me? Right? And then I started thinking about what I could talk about. And I remember I was in Lagos at the time, and I asked my friends to gather, and I said, is there a way we can start a school so that I can then go and talk about it? I said, I have 4 weeks, can we do this? But then, in the end, I decided, and this is what I say to students every time I teach, is if you're authentic to what you believe, it really is the best way to go, because even if you fail, you can sleep well at night. And so I just said to myself, what do you care about? And I thought, the thing that I sort of really cared about was this idea that we have to hear multiple voices. And how important it is not to have a single story. And I thought, all right, I'll talk about that. And I remember sort of having very low expectations and thinking, all right, and also thinking that most of these TED Talks sort of had Africans who kind of wanted sympathy. And I say that, I don't want to be dismissive of people who need help, but I felt that even the TED Talk, the history of the TED Talk itself had a single story of Africans who, were in a refugee camp and some white person had helped them, or an African who needed somebody to come help build wells in his village, and then you wonder, well, who was building wells all the years before these white people came? But anyway, so I thought that I didn't fit. No, you kind of wonder about that, don't you? I mean, people have been living for centuries in their communities, and suddenly somebody says, I'll come show you how to live your life, and you're thinking, really? But So I thought about it, and I thought, I didn't fit. So I was very uncomfortable. I mean, it's very obvious to me when I look at that talk that I was so fidgety and so nervous when I started talking. And the words wouldn't even come out. And at some point I thought, I'm going to have to leave the stage because it's not working out. I just felt that when I started, I really felt that the audience looked at me like, why is she here? She's supposed to be telling us to come help her in Africa, and instead she's kind of telling us to look inward at ourselves, right? But as I kind of got into it, and at the end of it, I got a standing ovation, and I was shocked. And I was like, really? Do they mean it? But I think it's that, again, that it's not so much that I told people what they didn't know. I think it's that I gave voice to maybe something that people already were thinking about. That they suddenly thought, yeah, there is something there. This idea that it's important to have many stories, right? And not to define something by a single thing. The second TED Talk, my friend bullied me into doing. And I said to him, I don't have anything to talk about. I already did the TED Talk. And he said to me, but there is one thing that you lecture all of us about. And I was like, what? And then he said, feminism. I was like, really? I did not know that apparently my friends and family kind of rolled their eyes about my constantly telling them that women are equal. And so I thought, okay, I will do this. And I remember actually writing it just before I went on stage because I was getting kind of panicky, and it was a TED Talk that was about Africa, and so it was full of Africans and friends of Africa in London. And I don't think that feminist is necessarily a good word on the continent of Africa. And so I didn't expect a lot of positivity, to put it mildly. And so I kind of went up stage thinking, you know what, they won't like it, but I'm just going to say it. So it was sort of my, and I was thinking this is something I believe. And when you believe in something, I think that the idea of pushback is tolerable because you're coming from a place of faith. And so I talked about it, and I was surprised afterwards. I really was. I mean, I do have to say that there were people who came up to me. There was a couple, a man and a woman, who said to me, the man said to me, I'm very worried. I don't want my children to listen to you. And then he said, I'm also really worried that my wife seems to like you and you're going to end up breaking up my marriage. And I remember thinking, really? And his wife just stood there not saying anything. But I thought, I have not set out to break up your marriage, dear man. But if it seems to you that my talk is going to cause a problem, then you maybe need to look inward and ask why.
Woo! Deep stuff. You become sort of, willingly or not, the go-to person for the feminist movement.
Oh Lord, unwillingly. Unwillingly.
Unwillingly. Well, you say, I realize I occupy this strange position of being a voice for gender rights, and so there is an automatic import to my words.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't want to be coy or be, I don't want to be disingenuous and pretend that I don't realize that I do, and it's a strange thing for me because I think of myself as a writer. I'm a fiction writer, I'm a storyteller, and I also think that in some ways the reason that I could have the platform to talk about these other issues is because I'm a fiction writer, and so I of course I know. I mean, I know that that I've kind of become a person who's a feminist voice. But there's something about that can be very limiting and constraining. That people then start to, that it becomes about people telling you what you should and should not do and what you should do. And I find that really very constraining. I think that pedestals are terrible things to be on. And so part of the reason that I feel so uncomfortable about being called a feminist icon or being called is that I don't really want to be. I want to say what I believe, and I hope that other people will connect to it, but I don't want to speak for anybody. I don't want to, I don't want to have to become the voice of something, because to do that, I think, is to lock yourself in a very tiny room.
But you do realize how inspiring and uplifting you are to not only women, but I would assume men as well. I'm hoping. You do. Okay.
I have to say, yeah, and men too. Do we have any men? We do have some men. I'm always, yeah.
In the back, in the front. No, very much so. We only have a little bit of time left, and we're going to open it up for a Q&A session. I want to talk fashion, right?